Okay, it's great to have everyone here. The usual rules are that you can ask any question you want at any time. Just put your hand up or be be kind to everyone else's opinions and viewpoints, and that said, don't overcrowd. But if you don't want to speak or ask any questions and you want to just do it through the chat window, we have a chat window there you can get to in the bottom menu. Well, for me on a PC, it's in the bottom menu of Zoom here, and you can ask questions there. I've got quite a few questions people have already posted onto Facebook and our WhatsApp group that they want to ask Lyn if we run out of questions. So yeah, it's great to have Lyn here. Everyone knows Lyn. He doesn't really need an introduction because of his vast experience in remote viewing and the Stargate unit for all these years. So he's here to answer your questions and dialogue with you guys. So if you've got anything to ask, then go ahead and start asking him if that's all right with you, Lyn.
Yeah, great. Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you here with your vast experience.
Well, I have a question, Daz. This is Rose.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Lyn. I really appreciate you making yourself available to do this. And I've been doing a lot of research, and yours were some of the first videos that I looked at when I discovered remote viewing. And one really astounding thing that I wonder if everybody's heard your story about when you were in the military and power went out. You were dealing with computers. I don't remember the full story exactly, but I have a kind of a similar experience. I wanted to ask you about what you think of it. But I wonder if you would tell your story first, and then I'll share what happened to me, and we could take it from there.
Okay. Let me raise my volume some here. I missed a great part of what you said there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's which incident were you talking about?
Well, you were talking about how you were working for the military, spying on some countries with computers, and the general was wanting you to do something to the computers of these guys, and then they mocked you, and they didn't think that what you said was going to happen, and so then apparently the power went out. And I wonder.
I think that happened to every viewer we had in the unit. We would find some things, and they would say, well, that doesn't make sense, and they would ignore it. And then they would find later that it was absolutely true. And the one that I think you're probably talking about, I did a session. There is a thing called a stage 7, which happens, and it will happen there are dozens of different ways it happens. I was working alone, and we were looking for, Saddam Hussein's next day of, what his plans and intentions were. And all of a sudden, somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're not going to believe what comes next." And I knew that as a stage 7 because I was in the room alone. And so I knew it as a stage 7. I wrote it down, P7, stage 7, you're not going to believe what comes next. I went on remote viewing, and I found that Saddam Hussein was evidently going to be sick on the day of the Feast of Ramadan and would not be in Agra, is it, where the Holy of Holies is and all that. And that he had a missile planned, American missile that he had, and that he had planned to lob it in there and kill the other Arab leaders. And that would leave him as the Arab leader of the Arab world. And the US would be the ultimate Satan, enemy, you know. And I got word back, you know, I passed it up. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe any Muslim would do that. But I passed it up, and evidently it got passed on up and all that because I had written, "You're not going to believe what comes next," and wrote it down. And I got word back just through the grapevine later that I had been right. So, you know, I didn't get any documented proof. I just got word back that I had been right. So, but nobody believed it. But I guess somebody checked just in case. And anyway, I have always felt that that one session saved billions of lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But there was a session that you talked about where, like, the power went out in a whole huge segment of a country because the general was mocking you about that.
When I was in Augsburg, Germany, I have had a PK thing all my life, and I was to give a presentation. I had done as a computer programmer, I had done a program that would tie 17 nations' computers together and let them talk to each. Yeah. And so anyway, I was to give the introductory talk to the leader, you know, to the military leaders who were there of the 17 different countries. And this other sergeant had wanted to get the job of doing the programming. I got it. He was very jealous of it. And so I was up. I had set the computer up and everything else. As people were coming in, I went to the bathroom to make sure my hair was perfect and my, you know, no creases in my uniform and all that. And when I came back, I started my song and dance, and I gave my little spiel, hit the enter button, and everything went down. Not the lights, just the computers all through the station. And all of a sudden, here are all these people in the room laughing at me.
No. This I don't think is the right story either. The general was asking if you could do that when the power went out in this country.
Oh, I don't remember.
The general was saying, "Can you do that to this target of mine? I want you to take out his computer." No, you don't remember what story I'm talking about.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that.
See, when I heard that story, I was quite astounded, and I just want to share why, because
but there was no time that the lights went out. I have found that when I relate something, what people hear is not always what I relate, and is almost never what they repeat.
Well, actually, no. I just was listening to this in the last few months, like last several months, as I've been doing my research, and I'm pretty sure this really struck me. And the power had gone out in a wide area of this country that was the target for this military leader that you were dealing with. And he called you into his office to say that he wasn't angry. You thought he was going to be angry about the power going out, but he asked you if you could do that again. And the power had gone out because you had given data saying something was going to happen within the next, 24 hours, and they didn't believe you.
I think this may have been some other viewers. Maybe
it was Joe McGonigal, because I was watching I've watched a lot of the early discussions with the people from Stargate, so it could have been Joe It might have been Joe.
Uh-huh.
It might have been Joe, as a matter of fact. But let me ask you then about this, because this happened to me.
This is one of those where I say, I didn't do it.
Yeah, and like it was really interesting because the general wanted them to do it again. He wanted them to make the power go out again so they could mess with the computers of the spies they were targeting. So
was this when they harnessed the lightning dragons?
I hadn't heard. Go ahead.
What was the time with the lightning dragons?
I'm sorry, Gran.
Was it the time when you harnessed the lightning dragons? I'm sorry, I'm just kidding, because I couldn't take any more of that. It's a little hard when you told her straight out that you didn't do that, and we keep going on and on about it. I apologize. I'm being a little ornery and facetious, but I have a legitimate question to you, because
Okay.
I think I read, sir, that you had been trying to practice your psychokinesis, and that maybe it had led to some burnout in that dimension. Is that correct?
Excuse me just a minute.
well, I wonder if I could just finish what I was going to say.
It's
Would
not
that
really
be
clear
all
what
right?
you were saying. I'm sorry. It was a lot of time and it wasn't really clear.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm asking a question and I'm finding the answer isn't really the answer. But
Well,
that's
let's
not really my
go
fault.
drawing board and do a little, we can do a little fact finding and find out what maybe you think it was, and then we can come up with a clearer question.
Well, you know, I was going to look it up and make sure, but I thought I was sure. And
Okay,
but I
this
do
is
have something I would like to ask about. But that's
Yeah,
all right.
Lynn-
You know what?
Lynn
I
already-
will save it
excuse
for
me.
another time.
Yeah, Lynn already explained it wasn't him. There's other people waiting to get in, so please only ask the one question and move on. Thank you.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you great.
Okay, this is much clearer, and so maybe I can understand better. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. I was just wondering. I've heard that you've been trying to practice psychokinesis, and that maybe it had led to some burnout after repetitive trials.
Burnout? No, the psychokinesis never led me to burnout. I was playing with it. This is when I was like 12 years old, and I was playing with it. I was developing it, and got really pretty good at it, under control. And one day I was showing off to the cute little redheaded girl, and she went home and told her father, the Pentecostal minister, and the next day he and some of his deacons met me, asked for a demonstration, and when I gave them a demonstration, they slammed me down to the sidewalk and started screaming for Satan to come out of me, and it just scared me to death. And for the longest time, I just never did it again,
Did you revisit it? I know that you had an incident that I think maybe was related to what the last person was asking about, where you were upset the computers were taken down accidentally. But after that time, did you try to revisit and practice and cultivate that ability again as an adult?
Okay, I got that. Yes, it was a PK incident. The PK has stuck with me all my life. When I get angry and all that, it happens. And you were breaking up on the last part of your question there.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay, I'm so sorry. As an adult, have you gone back to practice that? Because I thought that I had read that you had been trying as an adult after those incidents, maybe after the military program ended. And
Yes.
What was the result?
Yes, I have. And the result was I'm not having a lot of success with it. I had set up a bottle when I was in the unit that I kept in the windowsill, and the bottle had a cork in it, and it was upside down. There was a pencil sticking up from the cork, a needle sticking out of the eraser, point up, and a little piece of tinfoil balanced on the point of that needle. And at times, when there was nothing to do, I would sit there and make that thing turn in the different directions. But that's about the biggest thing I've been able to achieve with the PK since then, without getting angry. And I don't get angry. I try to laugh everything off.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sorry I couldn't hear you there.
Hey, Lynn?
Yeah, Richard.
Yes. Would you talk more about stage 7? I haven't heard much about that at all in a long, long time.
Yeah, stage 7. Now, I talked to Ingo, and Ingo had made changes and all that. When I learned stage 7 was just, from the other viewers and all, stage 7 was things that just happen. And it's usually a form of an AOL. It just pops in on you. But there are different ways it can happen. One, it will come as a, like all of a sudden you hear music in your head, okay? One time I was trying to do a target and all of a sudden this Beatles song, I think it's Lucy in the sky, Lucy in the sky, Lucy in the sky. And I couldn't get rid of it. And so I finally just gave up the session. And the monitor opened the envelope, and the picture was 2 hands full of diamonds, Lucy in the sky with diamonds, And there are other times, like the time with Saddam Hussein, where it acted as an actual physical and auditory thing. It can happen as a joke. It can happen, in many different ways. Stage 7 is actually quite complex, but basically it's something that comes in totally unbidden that is almost always symbolic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was that confusing enough? Sorry
Well,
about that.
It sounds like magic. Must be some kind of magic.
People ask Bill Ray, how does CRV work? And he comes up with the same explanation. It's magic.
I think Liz Cross has her hand raised. She wants to ask the next question.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you. And Daz, thank you for organizing this and the WhatsApp group. I appreciate it. Lynn, first of all, thank you for sending me that computer program where you get the flash of images. And I'm still reading through the manual on that one. It's very intense.
Oh, good. Thank you. She's talking about a tachistoscope program. When you're doing CRV or any psychic work, many times the information comes to you as just a blip, just a flash. And this program is one that I had created for drug interdiction workers. The thing is, we rarely ever see what's in front of us. We see what we interpret. But this program will teach you to get a quick flash of any scene and see the entire scene. And what it does for like drug interdiction or the police is it gives them a glance of the back of a car or some scene, and they pick up immediately on drugs or crime or some little evidence of something. And so it helps the police be one of these super detectives like you see on TV that always sees everything, So.
Hey, I was curious. There's a lot of questions in the chat box. Daz, are you going to read those out for Lynn?
I've got some from Facebook and from WhatsApp that I'll read after some of you guys get done with yours.
Okay, sorry, that wasn't my question. I was just thanking him. So Lynn, my question is, and I'll go ahead and get ready for everybody to boo me because everybody always boos me at the conferences when I ask these questions. During RI work, when you are mentally joining with somebody, because I do a lot of RI work with coma patients, how do I protect myself from getting their illnesses?
In CRV, especially the medical apps, one of the first things we teach in the medical apps course, medical applications, is how to protect yourself. We do it by using tools such as surrogate targets, which is called indirection. You don't work on the patient, you work on a picture of the human body, see what's wrong with it, and that exemplifies the patient. That way you're not dealing with a patient, you're dealing with just a stick figure. Another way is through scenarios. We have one that's most effective called the modern office building, where you picture that person as a modern office building. You enter it, you walk through, and you are walking through their building, and you see something that's messed up, or you see something that's trash over here or something, and you help them clean it up. You see a picture that's crooked on the wall, you straighten it up. You have no idea what symptom that is a representative of, but you have just helped them in their subconscious mind fix it. So we indirectly work on it. Now, when you're dealing with a person, the biggest thing is observe that person. Don't try to get into their mind and their body. Don't try to feel what they're feeling. Describe what they're feeling. Describe what it looks like they're feeling. Keep that separation, because you can get sucked into a person. Yeah. I think Gren just put up that he has an example of a stage 7. Gren, did you want to show that?
Yes, I'm sorry myself, but I believe, or I'd be interested to see if you think it is. It was in an ARV session, and I had a brief impression of trees, and then towards the end, I mean, very brief, like 3-4 minutes, I thought about something came to mind about cradle, and I heard the song "Rockabye Baby" in my mind without words.
Yeah.
And when I saw the two image possibilities, one of them was a crisscrossing set of branches, and I understood that it was the next words on the treetop. That was the reason that the song came in my head, and so I could share those in the chat. I don't know if I have a great way to share on screen right now.
That's a typical indicator of a stage 7. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting because I had been doing very short ARV sessions daily for maybe a month or two at that point, and I was feeling a lot of excitement when doing it because it's part of an app that's like a competition. But I rarely went beyond 3 or 4 minutes of viewing in a single day. So it's not like I built up to it, but in a way that you would expect by progressing through all the stages. But I'll share a link to my quick session, which is really ugly, and then the two options in the chat.
I've done a few ugly sessions myself.
Can a stage 7 happen anytime, like from stage 3 or beyond, or is it
It
after
can,
you've been doing it for quite a while?
it can happen while you're filling out your name at the top of the page. Yeah. Your subconscious says, I'm not waiting for you. I'm just, blat. Yeah, it can happen anytime.
But at that point, it's not an AOL. You can tell it's not an AOL, or is it more intense?
You can label it as an AOL. The stage 7 is a type of AOL. Yeah. It's just a very specialized type of AOL. There are many types of AOLs, in fact, and one of them, okay, AOL stands for Analytic Overlay. That means you get red, round, rubbery. Well, it may be a site that has something red, something else round, and something else rubbery. But you get those three and you analyze it and you say, oh, it's a ball, and that's AOL. That's pure AOL. Another one is where there's something red at the target and it's a very specific color of red. And all of a sudden, the picture of an apple pops into your mind. Okay. That's your subconscious mind going into that teenager room of yours and scrambling around in all the teenager junk, grabbing the first thing it can find that shows it to you from your memory. Okay. And so this type, we call it a stray cat. The subliminal transfer of recollections, anxieties and yearnings, that is memories, fears, and desires, to consciously accessible thought. And it happens at the subconscious level. It's not analysis, and yet it's a type of AOL. And there are different types of AOLs too. I have a sheet that lists about, I think about 12 totally different types of AOLs and tells how to handle them within the structure of a session once you realize what kind of AOLs you're getting. But yeah, I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys. I have a question from Mike. Mike asked, how did Lyn create the RV block that prevents people from viewing the story stone? Where did the stories come from?
How we invented it is a extremely long explanation. The stories, I don't know where they come from. I have viewed the story stone myself. I know the history of the story stone because I knew it ahead of time. But now I view the story stone, it'll come to me as just a set of coordinates, and somebody tasks me with the story stone, and I get stories. I don't know where they come from. The process is that you will have one difficulty after another. If you stick with it, all of a sudden you'll have a tremendously meaningful, great feeling session, and it's all wrong. The story stone just hides itself somehow. I never have figured it out. This was one of 3 ways that we found to protect a site from being remote viewed psychically or with CRV.
Excellent, thanks for that. Anyone else got any questions, or shall I read some out from this?
Yeah, I have a question. Hey Lyn, it's really amazing to meet you here. My question is related to the alpha and theta brainwave states and its association with improved ways of remote viewing, and also trying to reduce displacements as such. So what is your take on that? Because in 2002 there was a research study on Ingo Swann which was published by Persinger. He was put into this transcranial magnetic device, right? We call the God helmet, as we call it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there was like a 7 hertz spike when he, started viewing, and when he got into his zones. So what's your experience in that?
Several different ones. One comes from the research that I had heard that you can do remote viewing in any brainwave state if you learn how. The other is that Ingo Swann himself said, don't work with your eyes closed, because when you close your eyes, it causes an alpha state, which will then drive your imagination and creativity and all that. And you all of a sudden just start imagining things, So always work with your eyes wide open. I was also a guinea pig over in Japan, where they hooked me up with this helmet that had 48 different, electrodes and all this. And they had me do a session. And before they did, I said, well, what you're going to find is I'm wide awake. And, because you don't go into a trance or anything when you do CRV. And so they did it, and he got the readouts later, and he said, your brain switched into the same brain states that we have found with Kung Fu masters. And I thought, excuse me, that's the alarm saying it's time to come there. And that surprised me because I was just awake, So evidently there is some switch into a brainwave state. When you're doing CRV, you don't really notice it. You're just sitting there doing your work. I know we had a congressman come in one time. He wanted to see a session. And he watched a session, and afterwards he went to our director and he said, I'm totally underwhelmed. I just saw 2 guys sitting there joking with each other, and every now and then somebody would write something down. And the director said, okay, you brought the target. You haven't seen the target yet because one of your aides selected a target and sealed it in an envelope. Here's what they wrote down. Take out your target, see if it matches. And the congressman was there to see if we were going to be funded for another year. And he looked at the stuff we had written down, and he looked at his target, and he kept saying, damn. And we got funded for another year. So evidently something does happen in the brain. As a CRVer, you don't know it's happening. You just do your job. That's it, So that's the only experiences I can tell you about, is that I was 100% convinced that there is no difference at all. But there in Japan, they found that there was a drastic difference. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. That was amazing.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I found an interview with Lynn where he's talking about the future of RV from 2050. Okay. Somebody else had put something up in the chat room a minute ago. It just flashed up.
Yeah, that's I found an interview of Lyn's 2015 where he is talking about the future of RV from 2050. Did he ever RV that again in the last years? It looks the same as what he said then. I think, yeah.
Did he? Well, to my surprise, I was going back through some old sessions, and I found that in 1998, I had been blind tasked with the future of the U.S. And what I found in that session was that in the year 2020, there would be a beginning of a series of man-made natural disasters that was going to last about 20 years and greatly reduce the population, cause us to be separated except through electronics, technology, that cities were pretty well going to empty out, and that we would be generally, by the end of it, everybody would be, the survivors would be growing their own food, repairing their own broken down things and all this, and we would be physically separated, and our relationships would be through technology. Come to find out, back in the 1960s, I think it was, Stephen Schwartz had done the same thing and basically found the same thing. So that's about all I can say about that. The future of RV, I think, is going to grow and will sort of fall by the wayside, and the best part of it will be taken back into secrecy to be used by governments and all that.
Lynn, if I could expand on that, great session, because it seems quite predictive. Do you think that might have been predicting what we're now getting with the COVID-19? Because there are some quite good allegations and data that supports that that's a family virus.
I think that COVID-19 is the beginning of it. Yeah. Excellent. And that we've got more to come. And what I kept finding was that they are man-made disasters, man-made natural disasters. I know the Russians are developing earthquake weapons. Other countries are developing weather weapons to use the weather against people, and things like this.
That's I find that personally really interesting, because I'm part of this project called Crypto Viewing with Dick Haugeyer and a few others, and Courtney Brown's got his Farsight project, which are doing predictive work, and there are a few other people out there as well that I've been following over the last year, and strangely, all three groups of us individually seem to have had our normal RV sessions almost hijacked when looking at the future predictive targets, and we're getting a lot of data which indicates breakdown of society, mass movement, natural earth changes, all this kind of stuff. And we haven't got an exact timeline for this, but it's hijacked our data, and we're thinking that it's coming soon, but we haven't picked an exact date like you did. But it's interesting to hear that many years ago you guys also had similar data to this.
Well, I hope I'm wrong about the massive kill off of the human race, but I'm very willing to be wrong. Irene had asked if the stages of CRV are anything akin to psychic work. What Ingo did, Ingo analyzed psychic work and developed tools that can be used at the different stages of normal psychic work. The controlled remote viewing doesn't teach you to be psychic. You already are psychic. It just gives you the tools as you progress through the psychic process to control the psychic ability you have. Okay? So if you're doing CK with some enhancement through your anger, I try to never get angry at anything. I have learned through my life that bad things happen when I get mad, and I try to laugh things off. And if it's people, I try to just say, well, they're stupid. And, you know, just bah humbug humans.
Lynn,
Yes,
have you ever tried to RV any of the things that Ingo talks about in his book Penetration?
Yeah. I have made sure that I was blind tasked by them so that I didn't know what I was viewing. But yeah, you know, people ask Ingo all the time, penetration, is that fiction or is that the truth? He never would answer. It's what I find is it's a story based on a lot of truth. Yeah.
I asked him the very same question when I visited him in New York, and I said to him, you know, I said it's a pretty amazing story, and he looked at me and said, well, you know, how do you think it felt to me experiencing it? And he did go to a filing cabinet. Well, I was there because I asked him quite a lot of questions about penetration and what he saw. He did go to a filing cabinet and get out his original sessions that he did on it for me. And he also got a huge file of coordinates and feedback information that he'd also collected over the years to validate it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On another note as well.
But he never would answer the question directly.
Yeah, he did that quite a lot. I also asked him a question about because there's some, you know, there were some interviews of him with Jim Mars where it was claimed that Ingo talked about training a second unit, and I asked him about that as well. And he said, he just smiled at me when I asked him questions like that and said, you know, I'm under certain security oaths, and I just can't answer all your questions.
Sure.
He said that as he said that with a big smile as he did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But just on the penetration stuff as well, because I've been doing some research into Ingo's papers and his archives. I have actually found, and I've shared some of the information with Russell, who's here on the list, and a few others. But I have actually found some very interesting remote viewing Ingo did for a client, where he did do lots more RV research going back to the moon and Mars, but mainly the moon. And in this RV, and it was all done, and it was all recorded by audio and on transcript by his friend Bob Durant. And I've got the transcripts, and it's interesting, and I will release it soon because I'm going to try to release it in an article in 8 Martinis, but it's RV sessions and its entire communications with alleged aliens that he found on the moon, in their purpose there and what they were doing there, what they were doing with Earth and all this kind of stuff. So that's interesting stuff, and it greatly expands what he did in penetration.
Yeah. By the way, something I wanted to mention a while ago. If y'all haven't looked at the videos made by Grin, they're excellent. Very down to earth explanations of what's going on, and I've always wanted to drop him a message saying, "Good going, fella. That's really good. I appreciate the stuff you're putting out there, Grant."
Oh my goodness! Is it Christmas and my birthday all in one day, sir? Thank you. I appreciate the feedback very much, and I wish I had opportunity to continue those, and maybe I will someday. But it's just hard with COVID and lots of little gremlins running around the house all the time. But to hear your kind of stamp of approval there, that really means a lot. And I will tell my wife, and she still won't care. But I'm still happy. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question off list from Richard Kronowski, and he asks, Lynn talks about good versus bad aliens, etc. How did he come by this information? And was it RV tastings, and or was it by some other means? And who did he work with?
It was first of all, I can't tell you who I was working with. Second, none of it was through RV. This is after service. I was tasked by an agency to develop a compare and contrast paper of human psychic ability with alien psychic ability. And as a research resource, I was given access to a lot of abduction experiences and UFO experiences that have never been published and all that. And anyway, what I found was that as far as psychic ability, now this is not species, okay, as far as psychic ability is concerned, you can say that there are those who don't like us and those who do like us. In each of those two categories, there are those who are more psychic than we are, and those who are either less psychic or just not psychic at all. And so that makes 4 categories. The ones that don't like us and are not psychic tend to not come here. The ones, you know, except by accident or something, those who are not psychic and friendly to us come here for trade. And those who are friendly to us and more psychic than we are would like for us to develop our psychic abilities. Those who are unfriendly to us just want to wipe us off the planet. They don't want us learning our psychic abilities, you know, either stop that or just wipe us off the planet. And I couldn't figure out why those last 2 were that way. And there's this one incident that I read about, this one report that I read. These guys were out camping. They saw this UFO coming toward them, and the UFO came up over them, and when it did, they froze. They had no control. They were abducted. And from that, the other stuff I had learned led up to this point. But from that, I learned that the ETs are evidently a lot stronger in their psychic ability than we are, but they don't have any range. They have to be right over us. We have a weak psychic ability, but we can see across space and time like we can see across the room. And if we develop that and we develop our strength, when we get out into space, we will become a tremendous power in the universe. That's why our friends want to help us and our enemies just want us blanked out, you know. And so that was the report I turned in, and that's what that is.
So in that sense, when you say, oh, we can travel across space and time, so how do you get, exact numbers or names or locations when you're, RVing? Is there like is there like a specific method or a tip that, we can follow upon?
Yeah, CRV at its lower levels just really sucks at that. It's not good at it. Now, when you get into the higher levels in stage 6 and advanced and beyond advanced, there are tools, stage 8, stage 9 and 10 and so on. Those stages are not taught to the public, but those stages have ways that you can actually get accurate measurements in time and space. That's generally not taught to the public because Ingo did not want most of it taught to the public. Ingo developed up through stage 18.
Wow.
But he said beyond 11, he would never teach it to anyone.
Okay. So do you think these methods are available in, for research purposes or other, classified programs or in general anything like such?
The real ERV is pretty good at reading numbers, letters, things like that. But the real ERV doesn't exist anymore. Everything that is being taught as ERV is actually what's called guided visualization, and it's not ERV. ERV requires a highly trained monitor, and a highly trained ERV monitor can just grab anybody off the street corner and conduct a session. You don't, as a viewer, you don't have to be trained for it. It's the training of the viewer, of the monitor, that makes an ERV session.
It's great. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But yes, there are tools and other methodologies that that allow for things like that. Until you get into higher stages of CRV, it's really very poor at numbers, letters, measurements, things like that. Yeah.
Well, if it's not taught publicly, who is it that knows about it?
3 or 4 of the military viewers. And basically, we don't teach it.
So what happens when you're all gone?
It's gone. Unless somebody decides to come out with it. Sorry. But it will develop in time. As people develop their abilities, it will just naturally develop. Yeah.
And does this have something to do with the brainwave states, Lynn?
Not really. If you notice, how many of you do CRV, controlled remote viewing? Okay. For those of you who do that, you'll notice that stage 1 is graphical, stage 2 is words, stage 3 is graphical, stage 4 is words, stage 5 is not remote viewing, stage 6 is graphical, stage 7 is words, and other impressions and things like that. Stage 8 is pretty much graphical. Stage 9 is words. Stage 10 is graphical. Stage 11 is words, so on. So that was a little hint. How many people use CRV here? I'll click on me. Okay.
Just thought I'd run an informal poll as you asked.
Yeah, okay. See scrolls of writing, but it's so fast I can't read it. Any advice? There are ways to slow it down, but generally if you slow it down, it's going to be like in a dream, and it'll tend to be scrambled. Are these techniques taught at the Monroe Institute? No. Richie, privately, okay. No, the Monroe Institute teaches hemisync, and they have a hemisync remote viewing, which is pretty much out-of-body experience.
One of the new questions is, does Lynn approve of variations of the original CRV protocols? i.e. Courtney Brown has developed SRV and others have developed their own. What are your views on this?
Remote viewing is in its infancy. I highly approve of development, but what I've found is that most people who are trying development think up an idea, they try it 3 or 4 times, it works for them, and so they start charging people money to learn it. Bad. If you come up with if you learn the CRV and master it. The Ingo Swann style, which I teach, both Paul Smith and I teach straight Ingo Swann style. And you learn it, you master it, and then you come up with an idea. First of all, we were doing this for, more than 20 years in the military. We tried all this other stuff. First of all, ask to see if it's already been tried and what the results were. Second of all, if it's a good idea, many of them are, and many of them are new ideas. Try it 100 times, keep data, see if it works for a range of people, see if it's something that you can improve the CRV method with. But just coming up with an idea and saying, I've improved CRV, most of the people who do that and who say that, they just wind up degrading the process.
I've got a question from Liz Cross as well. She says, please ask Lynn, how do we get exact numbers, names, and locations during, she's put an RI session, but I wonder if she means just a RV session.
In the
Sorry,
advanced...
I do mean remote influencing session. Thank you.
How do you get numbers and things in remote influencing?
So when you're, because I do a lot of work for the police as well. When I'm remote conversing, I don't like the word influencing, but when I'm remote conversing, trying to get information for detectives, how do I get exact information? Because everything's going fine, and then when I ask for an address, I get blah, 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 blah. It's like scrambled. How do I get around that?
That's very hard. And in fact, most psychics, give me the street name. Oh, it starts with a G. And then blah, 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 blah.
That's exactly what I get. It's like gobbledygook. So I have tried the method of asking them to spell it, and that does work, but I'm such an impatient person. I'm wondering if there's a better way.
Be patient.
Thank you.
I have heard people use dowsing over the alphabet for the next letter and all that. In stage 8, there is a way called Analytics, a tool called Analytics, where you actually work out the thing. We say that, we can read a document locked in a safe, and that's true, and we can reproduce it. It may take a week of sessions to reproduce the first sentence because it's a slow, painful process. But as far as, psychic work, patience, and I don't really know the answer. I know that, like in dreams, and in most psychic work, when you get to man-made concept things like letters and numbers, they're not real things. They're just symbols. And so I know I have some people who are synesthetic, and they see the numbers as colors. And so what they look for is the colors of the numbers, not the numbers themselves or the shape of the numbers, So different people, I think, have found different ways to do it. I don't think there's an easy answer. If there is, I don't know one.
Thank you so much. I have been dying to ask you that question for about 3 years, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
I know in the CRV, I go into the higher stages, and we can get dates pretty well, find numbers, find locations, down to the address. Joe McMonigal found a woman who had been missing for I don't know how many years, and he led the police right straight to her door, which was an apartment in an apartment building. And but he doesn't use numbers. He uses locations, descriptors of locations down to extremely fine details.
So does this also hold good if the information in terms of numbers and letters are like separated in time, like in the future or past? Like, have you guys tried to view documents or letters and numbers like in the past, or just like in the future?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have found too that many times you will come up with a scribble and come to find out you've just written the letter or the number in a different alphabet, Russian alphabet, Chinese, whatever.
So there's the poll answers there. 82% of the people in your use
a lot of CRVers here. Good. By the way, I did mention Paul and I teach CRV, the Ingo Swann CRV. Back when when I was first out of the military and was teaching police departments and all, I started teaching the public when it became declassified. One of the other viewers in the unit, I won't say who, sent me an email saying that Ingo had told him that that Ingo did not want any remote viewers using his terminology, so please make up your own. So I made up my own, and things like, can you objectify that? Can you set it aside? Okay. Things like advanced visuals, previews of coming attractors and distractors, things like that. Just different words, same exact thing. And that person then started telling everybody that I had run the Ingo Swann structure, that I had developed my own remote viewing, that I had destroyed Ingo Swann's, and so don't train with me, train with him. And he even posted that Ingo Swann had said that he didn't want Lyn Buchanan. Anyway, I got in touch with Ingo, and Ingo said that never happened. Ingo said, use my terminology if you want to. And so anyway, the differences that you find between what Paul and I teach are only in the terms. We both teach the Ingo Swann structure, and whether you learn from Paul or me or anyone who is a qualified CRV structure instructor, you're learning Ingo Swann.
Okay, anyone else got any questions?
Daz, if I could ask Lyn a question. Lyn, it's been a while since you wrote your last book, Sixth Sense. Have you any thoughts of producing a new book?
Seventh Sense. Yes, I have. And I am now teaching 2 online classes. I have around 90 students at the present time, and we're having all kinds of health problems with my wife, and it's one of those things where I'm going to get to that this evening, and tomorrow morning I'm going to get to it this evening, the next evening I'm going to get to it this evening, and life gets in the way of doing what you want to do with your life,
It does. Any hints on what the content may be?
One that one of my students is doing is she's taking all the questions and answers that have been on the internet and on the CRV and CRVers email list and compiling them according to subject and all that. And she's putting out a book of the questions and answers. The other is, yes, I wanted to take the CRV process and write it out in plain English, using analogies, using examples and all that, and take it all the way through stage 7 and hopefully stage 8. I would like to do that.
Great. That would be
That's going to be a very thick, heavy book. Things like people rarely understand Gestalts. And look at Gestalts this way. Okay, this is one of my examples. Gork, the caveman, walks out of his cave and he's got his club in hand and he points to himself and says, hunger. Points out to the woods and says, food. Those are Gestalts. That's not a sentence. There are no verbs. There are no nouns, anything else. You know, hunger, food. And you get into CRV, you do your ideogram, and it says land, water, man-made, you know, or structure. And then you go into stage 2 and you say, okay, now that you've told me what's there, now then let's do some viewing. And simple things like that with illustrations, you know, and this is what I'm wanting to put into this book.
Good. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Who's next up? Anyone, or should we read some out?
Anything? There was a question in the chat room that I saw flash by. Can CRV restrict the flow of natural psychic ability? No, it enables it. That's what Ingo developed tools for. The CRV process is just tools that you can use to enhance and control your own natural ability. It doesn't make you psychic. It's a process. It's actually an interview and report process where you interview your subconscious mind and report what it says, what it tells you. So if you really look at the CRV process, it's an interview and report process. Simple as that.
Someone just asked about bilocation within CRV. I don't know what they want to know about it, but
yeah, bilocation in CRV is not out-of-body experience, and anybody who's had both will be very quick to tell you that they're different. There are some main differences. In bilocation, what happens is that that part of your mind starts paying so close attention that it sort of blocks out everything else. And bilocation actually happens gradually. So you'll be working along and all of a sudden you smell the sight and you actually smell it, you know. Your sense of smell is bilocated. And when all of your senses bilocate, you experience the sight as though you're actually there. You're not actually there, and nobody at the site can see you or detect you. As a psychic, you may have an out-of-body experience. You go to the site, and there's a guard and a guard dog walking around the site, you know, to protect it, and the dog alerts. That gets reported, you know. But with CRV, you have made your senses stop paying attention to anything around you, and they're paying only to perceptions coming from the site. The dog never alerts, the result is, this is one of the reasons it's so good for intelligence purposes. The dog never alerts, so it never gets reported. So they never switch to plan B, and everything you find is still good. So, so this is one of the reasons it's great for intelligence gathering, because you don't get caught. And oh, the thing earlier was, can you tell when you've been viewed? If somebody is viewing you through some other method or psychic interviewing, psychic spying on you, yeah, you can tell. With CRV, if you follow the Ingo Swann process, you can't get caught.
I have a quick question. Hopefully my audio is okay.
Yeah.
A while ago, and I'm probably going back over 10 years, I read about a woman and I heard her on an interview. Her name was Beverly Jager.
Yeah, Beverly, yeah.
And I remember hearing one of your interviews initially when you heard about her. And I believe during that interview, she said that she learned the hard way by reading the Russian protocol, if there is such a thing. Initially, I heard an interview afterwards that you had given, and you thought that it probably was, you know, it wasn't real, it wasn't legit, but then, sorry, my dog's going crazy. But you actually thought that, you know, she was valid, and she, you know, she apparently did a lot of really good work. She wrote a book called The Psychic Paradigm. And I just wondered if there is a different protocol that's not US based that you're aware of, whether it's Russian, Chinese, Israeli, whatever the case may be.
Well, first of all, Bevy was a very talented psychic and worked for the FBI quite a bit, and did a lot of good work. She was extremely talented. The other thing is, yeah, almost every country has their own protocols that they've developed, trying to understand psychic work, trying to put it into actual operations. The Russians had this before we did. One of my teachers in Russian school was actually a part of the Russian psychic research problem before she defected and came to the US. And she told me one day during lunch, she said that as far as what she knew about it, Adolf Hitler had a project called Dr. Grunbaum. It was a project, it wasn't a doctor. And they were doing research into Hebrew mysticism. And Hitler considered himself very religious. He had read, you know, that Adam and Eve were not kicked out of the garden for sin. Not at all. The Bible says they were kicked out lest they also eat of the tree of life and live forever. And the green tree, of course, is the symbol of the Hebrew Kabbalah. And so anyway, Adolf Hitler was looking into this, and he started a psychic program, studying it and all that. When Hitler lost the war, England, France, and Russia and the US divided the spoils. Nobody wanted that psychic crap, you know, because this is stupid anyway, but Russia wanted it. And so Russia started developing it. And by the mid 1960s, we were losing intelligence right and left because they had psychic spies that were stealing our information. And when we found out about that from a defector, Oleg Penkovsky, he brought documentation that showed the Russian effort, and everybody had a good laugh about it, but the intelligence community doesn't laugh. they said, oh, better look into this. And that was the start of our psychic spying effort.
Thank you for that.
That's where ours began. The Russians had it first.
And I'm sure they still do. I wanted to thank you for
yeah.
all the contribution. It means a lot to me just to be speaking with you and to get to tell you firsthand how much your work has impacted my life. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll take feedback like that anytime. Thank you.
I have a question on the chat board. It's from Colette. I think this is an old rumor from the military stuff, but I'll let you confirm it a bit. Question for Lynn: have you heard of a person dying during RV? I heard of a military person who died of a heart attack whilst bilocating to a ship with several ETs that he was not expecting, and he felt trapped.
But he had a very weak heart anyway, and yes, that did happen. Yeah.
Okay. And she also asks, are there any, well, there are obviously risks associated with certain targets when viewed.
Oh, absolutely. One of the risks is, first of all, that you can get sucked in. You're doing medical applications. If you don't do it correctly with protection, you can get sick. You're doing a murder scene, okay? If you don't do it correctly, you can get exposed to the blood and gore and horrors of that scene. People say that they want to learn remote viewing to help find missing children, and I say, be careful. You may access one of those children as they're being raped, murdered, dissected, and their body parts being spread across 10 acres of land. You know, you don't want that. The thing is, we have detoxification so that you can detox from the emotion that you experience. But one of the problems is it's there in your memory. You can't forget. And I know the remote viewing. A student I had 20 years ago, I'll look in my safe and look in my records and see one of their sessions they did, and they'll say, "You remember that time you were viewing, the Mormon temple up in Canada?" "Oh yeah, I remember that," and they remember it exactly. It's there. You don't forget your sessions, and if one of those sessions is a blood and guts horror, you may detox from the emotion of it. But listen, it's there in your memory and you carry it the rest of your life. This is one of the dangers of the real remote viewing. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I say that to people all the time, and I've done over 250 missing person cases for the police in the United States. And I did that over a period of 4 years. And after 250 of them, and the last one that I did was an alleged serial killer case for 2 New York police detectives with a database of 180 victims in it. It gets to be too much. So I haven't done any since, because after 4 or 5 years of that, I had to continuous. I had to stop, because when you're looking, as you said, when you're looking for a missing child, and you're reporting that the parents killed the child and dumped him in a rubbish tip, it's just something you can't forget.
Yeah, and if you, in these sessions like that, if you don't employ all of the self-protection tools that Ingo created, listen, it can mess you up. It can really mess you up.
So leading on to a question for this, because I teach a couple of people now a year, but I vet the people that I teach quite diligently. Do you think CRV and all RV training should be open to anyone, because I'm aware that it does. Not everyone's suitable for it, and it can mess some people out because not everyone's mentally aware of what this can do to you and the changes.
Oh, I don't think everybody needs remote viewing. I think it has many uses, and for every person, it has at least one use. One of my students one time said that learning CRV all the way through it is like joining the Marines to learn how to fold your underwear. There are easier ways to learn what you need, but not everybody needs the entire package. Very few people need the entire package, and I think it would benefit everybody in some way, but not everybody needs it.
I think, Lynn, what do you think about the psychological ramifications of viewing something that is, for example, like a murder scene? I mean, I'm a retired police officer. I've seen many horrific scenes in my career.
Yeah.
We get a debrief. We've got counselling available if we need it, but we're also psychologically assessed, obviously, to be suitable for the role of a police officer. Now, irrespective of that, when somebody enters into CRV or remote viewing, whatever for, they could well view some quite horrific or disturbing scenes. And obviously not everybody is of the correct capacity, mental capacity perhaps, to deal with some of those instances. What's your view on that? I mean, do you think in that respect, is remote viewing open to everybody, but are they truly aware of the risks?
It's open to everybody. You should be aware of the risk. They not only may not have the mental capacity, they may not have the emotional maturity to deal with it. I always warn people, you get on the internet, you get on Facebook and all that, and somebody comes up and says, I have a target for you. Listen, if you don't know that person and you don't know that you can trust that person, don't do that target. This was done to one of my students. She did it, and she wrote back to the person and she said, is this a safe target that I can work? And the person wrote back and said, it's completely safe. Yeah. And she did the session. The target was these two sisters who were attacked, raped, murdered, and their bodies were taken, hidden, buried, and all that. And she went through this and experienced it, and it was a horrible session. She got over it and all that. About 2 or 3 years later, her marriage was crumbling. She was on the verge of getting fired from her job. Her friendships had gone away and all that. And at that time, she just one day contacted the guy who had given her the task. He had never given her feedback. He said, oh yeah, that was these two sisters who were murdered. And she realized what had happened.
Oh.
And there in her subconscious mind, all those years, it was eating away at her and eating away at her life. In my training, I never give blood and guts targets. I never get 9/11 or anything like that. But you get out on the internet and there are people who will task you with people who were crushed in the stairway on 9/11. What did they feel? If you don't know the tasker, or if you're not working through a project manager who has done due diligence with the tasker, don't do the session.
It sounds like the lady almost had PTSD, and it would be quite fair to you know, go through that process, exactly the same process. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder from.
Oh yeah.
Because it becomes a memory, you know, a real, like you said earlier, it's almost like a real life memory.
Yeah, and not all memories are conscious memories. Many of them are subconscious memories that, you know, work on you and you don't even know it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the thing about remote viewing. This is the real thing. This isn't a parlor game. You know, this is the real thing.
If I may just ask one other question, well, quickly going. You spoke recently to, well, sorry, I think it was back in March, to Jeffrey Mishlov. I think you mentioned Nina, is it Kuliniga, the Russian lady? But you
yeah, that's not her real name, Nina Kalogina. Yeah.
I think, did I hear you right? Because I'm going back a bit. You were talking about the power of remote viewing to actually stop somebody's heart. Am I reading that right or not?
Remote influencing.
Sorry, yes, to actually physically stop somebody's heart. And you said, I think you said it was quite dangerously easy in a way.
It is. It's scarily easy to do. I won't go into it because going into it tells exactly how to do it. But yeah, it's frighteningly easy to do. Yeah.
So it shows the
and the men who stare at goats, you know, Lynn Cassidy killed the goat. That wasn't me. That was another sergeant, but it did happen. And it's amazingly easy. Yeah.
Wow. And the power of the mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you. I'm done. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Then we have a few people asking just different questions about your med applications classes and if they'll be coming online and that kind of stuff. I wonder if you can give an overview of the med stuff you do.
Yeah. I think Richie is here and also Coral. I think they've both been through the medical applications course. I am working right now on the intermediate course and the advanced course. And then next will come the medical applications course. The basic course that I have has 160 videos and growing. And so these courses, I'm making them college level courses, going into total depth on these things. And so I'm putting heart and soul into each one of these, and I'm not cutting any corners. As a result, you know, I'm never getting to the end of them either. So anyway, yeah, but the medical applications course, I hope I live long enough to have it up. But Coral and Richie, I think Richie's here, have been through those courses. Richie has aced it and mastered it, and they would be the ones to talk to. Coral, did you have something to say about it?
I'm writing on the chat. I'm responding to the questions on the chat about it. Paul's teaching it too. Richie, I see that Richie's disappeared a bit. He's not replying either. But yeah, Paul's in Ireland. Because Liz wants to do it with you. She says she's done up to advanced with you. So.
Oh yeah. The thing with the medical applications is that it's remote influencing, and I really dislike the term remote influencing. It's actually remote persuasion. You don't influence a person to heal. You persuade them to heal themselves. And you get into a person, you find out the cause. So first you do a diagnostic session, no healing involved. You do a diagnostic session to make sure you're not trying to heal the right the wrong thing. And you find the cause, and then you work with that person to heal themselves. If you heal them, they'll get sick again. If they heal themselves, they not only heal themselves of that problem, but they learn how to keep themselves healthy. And so, yeah, the process is remote persuasion. You talk to them, you deal with them, you at the most basic level, and it takes a long time. Richie's here. Richie, did you have something to say about the medical apps?
Well, I work on the thing that I do a lot of surrogate stuff, and I do get sucked in. I allow myself to be sucked in because I've learned from yourself how to detox, and I detox as I do it. And I just find that by melding minds with the patient, that I get a very strong response, and they get a strong response. And the whole thing is, I'm not trying to fix them. I'm helping them fix themselves. That's the way I approach it, you know.
Yeah.
So it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but you get a sense from the person, and they sort of welcome you when they realize that you're there to help. You know, you get that sense of welcome.
Yeah. And in the medical applications, you do want to be noticed. You want them to know that you're there. Along that line, many of the healings, you're actually not healing them, you're teaching them. So it's sort of a teacher guiding the person to show them how they can heal themselves and stay healthy. And like I say, the medical applications, one of the first things you learn in that course is self-protection.
Just to mention, somebody was mentioning about working with people in comas, and that very effective to talk to people in the coma. You can get real messages from people in the coma and pass it on to their loved ones, and you get a great response from even the loved ones, because they know what you're getting is the truth, because you couldn't possibly make up. I normally ask a question that I can relate back to their loved ones to be sure that I'm talking to the person in the coma, that I'm not making it up myself. And I find that is really excellent, you know.
People in comas can have good days and bad days, and I've done a lot of work with people in comas, helping them come out of a coma. And one time down in Louisiana, I was visiting in the home of a family. They had a person in a coma in one of the rooms of their home, and they said, "Well, can you tell us what he's thinking and all that?" And I said, "Yeah, he's got some kind of an irritation in the middle of his back." And she said he's having a really bad day today. And so they went in, turned him up on his side, and the sheet had just bunched up underneath. They spread the sheet back out, laid him back down, and he got peaceful. And they said, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Well, he told me, you know." Yeah, you can communicate with people in comas, and you can help them work their way out of a coma, or you can help them through their time in a coma, so that they're not feeling trapped and scared, and you know, and all that. So yeah, this is very useful for coma patients.
Yeah, I can tell a story there, Lynn. I know I've said it to you before, but about a woman who was on her deathbed. I got a message from her son that she was having trouble passing. Is there anything I could do? And immediately I got sucked into her. So I worked on her, and I was able to tell the family certain things of what needed to be done for her to go. One of the daughters wouldn't let her go mentally, and she was afraid to go because she didn't want her daughter upset. So I told them what to do, sing a song and those other stuff. And as I was telling them to do it, they were starting to do it anyway. And then the woman showed me herself in a younger state dancing. I was able to tell them all about her youth. I never met this woman. I knew nothing about her. And I said to them, she will pass between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And she passed at 5:20 a.m. So, and she told me that, once she got settled, and she went very peacefully in the end. So it is very powerful, very powerful.
It is. I got a call one time from a Japanese guy who said that his partner was dying of AIDS and was in a coma, and they wanted to know whether to go ahead and pull the plug or not. And could I access him and find out if he wanted the plug pulled and all that. So that evening, I after the house got still and everything, I sat down and did the session and accessed this person, excuse me, and talked to him, calmed him down, got over some of the pain that he was having and all this other stuff, even in the coma. And at the end, I said, do you want the plug pulled? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, is there anything you want me to tell your family? And he said, tell them I was always honorable. He didn't say love or anything like that. Tell him I was always honorable. He said, okay. The next morning, his partner who called me back and said, my partner woke up in the hospital this morning and said that during the night he had been visited by an angel who helped him stop hurting and said that it was going to be okay. And so he doesn't want the plug pulled. He wants to talk to other AIDS patients and tell them that it's okay and all that. And so don't bother doing the session. And I said, okay, thank you. I won't bother then. And that was that. But he interpreted it as an angel coming to visit him. And that's fine. It saved the end of his life, And so, on the medical apps, you generally want them to know that you're there. And there's a way to make that happen. Yeah.
Has anyone got any other questions on the medical stuff, or should we move on to something else? Okay, we can move on then. There's a question that's just come up on the list, on the chat list from Chris. Could Lyn expand on the discussion he had with Ingo when Ingo asked Lyn when he thought the ideogram happened? This was from a phone call that was cut short.
Yeah. Well, that was, I told about that in the IRVA talk I gave this year. There had been all this controversy about ideograms, okay? And so at one point, I was talking to Ingo, and I said, Ingo, what exactly is the ideogram? And I told him about the controversy, and he kind of chuckled and he said, well, you're having that controversy because you're all idiots. And he said, tell me, when does the ideogram happen? And it was from that conversation that I learned that the ideogram is not what you put on the paper. The ideogram is a process where you take the coordinates and that gives your subconscious mind an exact target to go to. Then you say, basically, here are the coordinates, what's there, and it says land, water, okay? And as a result, you have a physical response, just like any martial artist. You get a physical martial artist gets a concept in, and they react physically. And so you have a physical response, and that line on the paper is the result of the ideogram process. It's not the ideogram. And then you feel that ideogram, and you get the shape and the feel of the ideogram, and you go over to A, and you write A, and you write the shape and the feel, and then you say B. That combination of shape and feel is my ideogram for land. Tom McNear, Tommy, talked about this in his talk to the APP people. You may have 10 ideograms that are the same shape, but each one will have a different feel because each one is a different gestalt. And so you can't look at the ideogram and say, that's my thing for land or man-made or something. You look at it and you feel it, and the feeling you get off of it, along with the combination of the shape, that combination is your ideogram. Okay. The line on the paper is not the ideogram, it's the result of a process. Was that confusing to everybody?
And I have another question here as well. It's something we talked about earlier with your prediction of stuff that was going to happen in the future. Someone wanted to know, when you did you RV any group behind the 20-year man-made natural disasters? And if so, were they states or groups behind states?
I did not directly task myself with that. I got the impression while I was doing it, by the way, I've been tasked with this several times, blind tasked, and I always get the impression that it's, I guess the term is the powers that be. And I tried once to view the powers that be, and I got a pretty severe warning. This is not territory that you want to go dabbling in, you know. This is where angels fear to tread. Don't view us anymore. And so I don't.
That makes sense.
That's self-protection.
Yeah. Another question off the list here from Grin, which is interesting. He says, this might be a bit controversial based on past discussions. Did you know Glenn Wheaton whilst he was in the military? And also, did you know the man who first trained Daz Smith? That was a guy called Lee Culver.
I don't know Lee. I know Glenn Wheaton. I did not know him while he was in the military or while I was in the military. Glenn, it's a mystery where he got trained, and that mystery has never been solved. But one of the things I like about Glenn is that he's not in it for the money. He's not in it for the glory. He just wants to teach people to remote view. He has a totally different methodology. It has some problems, and those problems do show up in the result, but they have good results. And so, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's the results that matter. You get good information, you find the missing kid, you can gut chickens for all I want and read intros if you want. You find the missing kid, hey, it's a good method, you know. Irene, thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said about that as well. And in the past, I've had some, especially in the deep past, I think we all did have some conflicts with Glenn's claims at some point or other. Myself, particularly, because I like to class myself as a person that's really into trauma to study the entire history of remote viewing, and I couldn't, and I still can't to this day find any evidence to back up his claims. But at the same time, you know, I do admit that the HRVG methodology does work, and you know, one of the people I work with, Dick Augar, quite a lot now, is really successful with how he uses it, and in the end, that's all that matters. But I have to be honest, I can't substantiate any of, and I never have been able to substantiate any of Glenn's claims in any way.
No, you can't, and you probably never will. What I know Glenn as a friend. He's a good guy. He's good-hearted. He's a good old Texas boy, you know, and you can't beat that. So, but there's no you know, there may be deception. I don't know, but there's no ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Glenn's just wants you to learn how to remote view. Yeah.
And as I said, in my past, I've had some conflicts with him. But over the last few months, we have actually had a couple of Zoom discussions. So even old enemies can put this kind of thing behind us for the great remote viewing. Any other questions any of you guys got there? Because I think we've run out of the ones in the list here at the moment.
Just want to say you guys are great, and that idea of putting difficulties behind each other, that's what we ought to strive to do, to get along and everything.
When all of this came out to the public, I started a international database for CRVers. It's still open and it's still operating. Any qualified Ingo Swann CRVers can have access to the database. And one of the other trainers, I went and I said, you know, your students can have access to the database. Project managers can draw from the best of your students and the best of my students and the best of somebody else's students. And the database shows strengths and weaknesses. So a project manager has a certain question. They can look in the database and see who is the best to give that answer to that question. And so it's open to your students. And he said, you're thinking like an enlisted man now, the mission. He said, we're in the civilian world and we're competing now. And that competition, I think, has retarded what we have achieved more than just about anything else. The competition, the bickering back and forth on Facebook and all that. I just wonder what we could have done by now if we'd all cooperated.
Can you see China as a threat? Absolutely, I agree with the FBI 100.
Sorry, I've muted Ned there because I don't know if he had a question or not.
Okay. And
I guess the question I've got that would be is, it seems like we're really in some kind of dark times right now, and I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously, folks like you and the crew here are really a very positive influence, but I'm just wondering, it seems like the bad guys have got the upper hand right now with this COVID-19 and everything else. Hopefully there's some hope we can put them in their place. Maybe not put them in their place, but keep them from putting us in our place as they see it.
I have just always felt that every drop you add to the ocean raises the level of all the ships at sea on Earth, you know. And there are a lot of them trying to drain the ocean. But I think we can do a lot to keep humanity afloat, you know, so to speak.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have a question from Frank from Facebook. He said, can you ask Lynn the following? Back in the Stargate, well, this is going back a few years, Stargate Yahoo groups days, there was a discussion about whether if it was possible to block remote viewing. The general consensus was that it was not. However, Lynn gave us a target in Taos, New Mexico, and several people, including myself, gave it a try, but no one was able to penetrate the target. Can we ask him what it was and how we were blocked?
I don't remember the target on that. If you're not doing strict Ingo Swann, there's no way to block it. We have found in doing sessions that we will run into things where there is protection of a target, and we found that one of the ways to combat that protection, like voodoo protection or something like that, actually turned out to be very simple. The monitor would say, well, if you could view it, what would you find? And the remote viewer will say, oh, I would find such and such, and it gets viewed. There are ways to block CRV. Like I say, we developed 3 ways to do it, and we only protected the story stone, 1 classified installation, and the classified information within one person's mind. Now, the story stone, you can view it. It's when you try to view its history that we block the history of it. And but other than that, almost every other psychic means, they're easy to block. Yeah. Everybody knows, for regular psychics, put a ball of white light around you, put a shield around you that reflects everything back, or things like that. And those things work. Yeah, it's not hard.
Another question from the board here. Has Lynn ever enlisted the help, and this is from Steve, has Lynn ever enlisted the help of ETs to get around blocks, much like Courtney Brown suggested that he has done?
To get around a block?
Yeah.
No, not for that purpose. Was that an enigmatic answer?
And this is Grin again. Following up on blocking RV sessions, there's a slide deck from Sunstreak where there's a crossed out line about possible Chinese research with children to block RV, and there's a line that says that there will be a project to attempt to replicate, and that line is kind of crossed out in the declassified document. I also remember, I think in 7th Sense, you wrote that you may have made connection to a young Chinese girl on multiple occasions over kind of a prolonged period of time, and that she may have been part of a Chinese program. I was wondering, was she related to that statement in the slide deck, or are those 2 separate topics? The Chinese attempt to block RV and...
Probably was related to that, because the Chinese will not use anybody over the age of 12. So, when she became 12 years old, she was released from that project over there. So it probably has something to do with that. Now, the work with, psychic ability with children, that was not a part of our project. That was research going on elsewhere. Yeah.
Does that answer everything for you, Grin? Is he gone?
Grin, are you there?
Yes, it sort of answers it. If there was a government project to have psychic children defend against remote viewing and it wasn't with your team, then boy, I'd love to know more about that. But thank you.
I would too.
I was curious.
Yeah, I would too. I have done my own research in that, and my own son is excellent at remote viewing, and it is so easy for him that he just never cared. He just wanted to go out and play ball.
Wow. Thank you.
Who asked this? Liz asked, Lynn, have you ever combined RV with other methods in order to boost your outcome?
Absolutely. Yeah. The advanced course teaches you how to use other methods within the CRV structure. You can use ERV, you can use BRV, you can use ARV, you can use any psychic work, dowsing, scrying, any of that. And when you do, the CRV structure becomes only a method of reporting what you find. But yeah, in the advanced course, in the advanced stage 6, there is an option that Ingo created to use any other psychic method and just use the CRV structure as a reporting method tool for it. Yeah. And yeah, we do that all the time. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're out of questions on the list. Oh no, we got a few more actually. Dare we ask what benefit the ETs provide to remote viewing? I don't know if there's any benefit really.
Try that again.
Someone asked, dare we ask what benefit ETs provide to the viewing? I think that might have been in response to the Courtney blocking thing that Courtney claims.
I think they're willing, some of them are willing to help us, help us learn. Yeah. I have always, in talking to Ingo, I have always felt that this was not the creation of one single human. I've always just had the feeling that he got help from somewhere. This is too good a method to be developed by one person.
That makes a lot of sense in that, as I said, I got this set of remote viewing he did when he had these communications with these telepathic aliens on the moon. I'll send you a copy of it so you can have a look at it for your files, because that would make sense with what some of the stuff he did then. But he did these experiments in I think 92 and 90, from the years 92 to 96.
Yeah.
And so that was after he got highly involved with the CRV process and stuff. But when he has these discussions with these telepathic aliens, and he describes which ones were, I don't want to give too much away right now because it's not been published, but there's different types of aliens on the, well, it's one race of aliens on the moon, I should say, but they have different roles. And there are some of the telepathic aliens that are there for offensive reasons, and there's some there for defensive reasons. And he goes into depth into this in the conversation. So I'll send you the session so you can have a look at them before I eventually publish them.
Good, yeah. And the entry point in Mount Zeal, we found different types of aliens coming in and leaving from that entry port, port of entry.
Yeah, and the ET side of things is a subject that some people don't like to associate with remote viewing, but of course, from the very beginnings of the unit and the people involved and the people, that are there today, like people like Harold Putoff and stuff, you can't get away from the alien connection with remote viewing. Really, I think there is a bit of an entwinement.
No, you can't. Yeah. Well, it's one of the only ways that the common person's going to get any truth about it. Yeah. All you're going to get is lies. And Liz, thank you. Yes. Yeah, but the some stuff about the ETs are coming out, and I think it's gotten to the point where the government can't lie about it anymore. So all of a sudden they're trying to be heroes by telling us, yes, I keep trying to improve my remote viewing. And in fact, let me tell you this, it's good advice for everyone. After 35 years, I'm getting old, 30 some odd years of doing remote viewing, I still practice the ideogram drill.
Yeah, I forgot.
I still practice the ideogram drills. The ideograms are the building block that remote viewing, the CRV method is built on.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay, any other questions in this? Anyone live here got something they want to ask by voice? No, you're...
Hey, I got a question.
Go for it.
So since we're still, this is Chris, by the way, since we're still kind of poking around the moon, and we got a bunch of clever people here, what does everyone think about that idea that the moon is like a ship, you know, like it was either brought here or flew itself here? Is that just getting kind of too crazy? Or
I think the gravitational pull on the Earth sort of eliminates that method. It may be used as a ship. Excuse me a minute. It may be used as a ship, you know, by riding on it. But as far as it being a manufactured ship, I think the gravitational pull of it on the Earth kind of belays that rumor.
One of the questions from Rid is, Lynn, what is one of the most interesting things you have remote viewed? He says recently, but I'm kind of thinking, what was one of the most interesting things you remote viewed in all the things you've done, really?
I think the most interesting, and I talk about this in the book. I hate to be one of those people say in my book, but so if you've read the book, you've heard this before, is what I'm saying. The Russians had a particle beam weapon, a death ray, that would just blast through anything. And there was a question about what was going on inside the beam. And, you know, you stick an instrument inside the beam, it's going to disintegrate completely within a microsecond. So somebody had the genius idea of saying, well, let's stick a remote viewer in there, see what happens. And so I had volunteered for it, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The beam itself is so strong that it actually just distorts time itself. And I learned a lot about time from that thing. Time is not anything you were taught in school. But it was one of the most interesting targets that I think I've ever been tasked to view. Spectacular, just phenomenal.
Excuse me, I'm Demi. This is exactly about what I want to talk with you about. Sorry, I'm having inhibition because of my English. After that death ray, you are talking about the Russian death ray. Did you come to a conclusion? I mean the chemistry, the technology, because for me it meant a lot. Because you said it was like an alteration of time there.
Yeah, it is a particle beam weapon, atomic particles, and they wanted to know the activity of the particles. While I was in there experiencing it, I was having a hard time remembering my tasking, what I was there for. But I described the activities of the particles within the beam, and that's what the customers wanted to know. The experience itself was, for me, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, this was a particle beam weapon. Many countries are developing particle beam weapons now. Yeah.
Okay, nothing special to think about for the future or something like that. Okay, thank you very much.
Are you developing one?
Oh no. But I should remote view one someday.
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm Romania. I'm from Romania.
Oh, Romania. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to try to speak Russian to you, but
You could try. We have the same kind of nuances
I
in
know.
talking.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hear Romanian, and if I don't listen closely, I understand it. If I listen to the endings and all that, I get confused, and trying to read it is hard for me. But
We are talking the Latin. It's a Latin language in Romania. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and it's a big honor to see you and to talk with you
thank you.
face to face from remoting. Your book was the first one when I read it 2 years ago, and it was the first time when I came in touch with remote viewing. Thank you very much.
Is it in Romanian?
Yes. It's in.
It's in several languages, and the publisher will not give me copies. So
well, I will try to find one and to send to you if it's okay.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would love that. Thank you.
With great pleasure. Yes, of course. Thank you very much for the answer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We have some ET related questions. I'll start with Rids first. He says, Lynn, do you think there are any dangers in viewing ET targets?
I don't think so. The friendly ones don't mind being viewed. The unfriendly ones, I don't think there's anything they can do about it. So I would definitely view plans and intentions. The tasking is describe the plans and intentions. All right. There are some interesting ones.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, by the way, is part of the technology transfer. And last time I was visiting him, I said, what are we getting in trade these days? And he laughed and he said, those are old cultures. And they lost their creativity a long time ago. And he said, they're just not creative. And he said, they traded us stuff in the past. We have taken that stuff, gotten creative with it, and made all kinds of inventions. And he said, what we're trading them now is their own stuff back again. And they're happy to get it. I guess we're trading them Velcro or something. I don't know.
That answers one of the questions, I think, really, because someone asked, you mentioned earlier that some ETs come here to trade. And they wanted to know what was being traded. So that kind of answers that question, I think.
What about a good scotch?
A good scotch? Yeah. Hey, I don't know how that would do, but it'd be interesting to see. And like on the Star Trek thing where the alien captures the ship and they try to get the alien drunk and they're down to their last bottle and the alien says, what is this? And Scotty says, that's green. And they drink it. But that would be interesting.
Darby wants to know, did the remote viewing unit ever experiment with lucid dreaming officially or unofficially?
Unofficially, yeah. Mm-hmm. They tried it. There were all kinds of stuff. The Ingo Swann method, in fact, we thought up thousands and thousands of ways to improve it. I would say 99% of those didn't work, didn't improve it at all. But we found some ways. For instance, the encrypted coordinates. If Ingo Swann gave us geographic coordinates, well, it came to the military and they said, view the captured soldier. Okay, give me the geographic coordinates. Well, if we had the geographic coordinates, we wouldn't need a remote viewer, you know. And so we developed a method. I have taken that, and for practice targets, what I give is today's date, because that first coordinate is not going to repeat itself for 100 years. So you will never have two targets with the same coordinate. And your subconscious mind will mix targets if you have two targets with the same coordinate. It will.
Excellent. Any of you live people on video got any questions? Because we're getting into 2.5 hours now. I don't know how Lynn's doing for time. Silence from them, I think.
Hey, I've got a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Cool. Sorry to take the conversation back to the blocking things, but you
Okay.
mentioned you blocked a certain facility, and I'm just wondering, there's a certain facility that a few of us have tried to view, and a lot of people have had headaches. Do we have you to thank for that?
Could be. Oh, I'm not taking the blame for anything, but the thing is, the method.
It's Area 51.
Oh no, no.
Oh, that wasn't you. Okay,
no,
somebody else gave us headaches.
Oh yeah.
As you guys probably know, I did that for Courtney and with Dick Howgar. And Courtney, I think that's the one where he claims that at first none of us, because I think 3 or 4 of us were at the target, none of us were getting anywhere with the target for the first session we did. And that's what I think where he claims he did some kind of blocking thing with aliens and stuff. And then when we went back and did it, we did get good data. But yeah, I don't know what I believe on any of that myself.
Yeah. No, Area 51 is one of those classified things that everybody knows about, you know. No, the facility we're protected is a place you will never know about through any other means either. Yeah.
Is the methodology for blocking stuff that you use documented anywhere, or is that a secret too?
We had a standing order to see if we could find a way to block CRV. One of the other viewers and I tried these things, and we found 3 ways to do it. We wrote them up, took them into the director, and our director at the time was one of these anal micromanagers. We handed him the papers. He said, "I didn't task you to write these papers. What the hell are you doing stuff on your own time?" He ripped them up and threw them in the trash, and that was it.
So we'll have to review it if we want to know.
I have written them up. I just don't share it. But I can tell you that we found a method, like on the facility. You know, Ingo talks about the matrix. What we did was we switched that with a place in the matrix that you're probably never going to view anyway. And so anytime you try to view that facility, you will view the other place. Now, if you view the other place, you may wind up seeing the facility, but we picked a target that nobody's ever going to view anyway. So, you know, that's what we did with that target. We just switched them in the matrix so that anytime you try to view that facility, you're going to view the other place.
So I guess all we need to do now is just task the other place, and we've got it.
Maybe, but you're going to have to be very specific and know where the other place is. This is one of them where the generic task, you know, view the other place. We've got a protection on that too. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Nice
No,
try.
no, we were very thorough. We were very thorough. Like the Story Stone. Everybody says, well, go back to a time when it wasn't protected. Doesn't work. We were very thorough in our research on how to protect targets, and we sat there and we said, well, what if we do this? What if somebody gets around this? You know, because we had all this time we had been getting around other people's protection, so we worked out ways to protect it from being gotten around. Yeah.
Lyn, I have a question for you, because I've looked and I can't find anything, but have you found any evidence or seen any indications that the American government still has a secret remote viewing program going?
When you retire, they stop telling you secrets. Okay. I have a standard answer, that being, I'm not a spokesman for the U.S. military. You would have to call the U.S. military and ask them, you know, and of course they're going to lie to you. But yeah, I guess about 5 years ago, the CIA came out on their list for, you know, job applications. One of the applications was for a remote viewer. And within an hour, that was taken down. And they deny that it was ever up there. That was an indication. I've heard rumors that there is still an effort. You know, like in Russia, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You know, I would hope that there is still a remote viewing effort, because it was very successful. It was very useful, and the government would be stupid not to have it. That changes the question, does our government ever do anything stupid? You know, so I know the answer to that one. So I don't know.
Yeah.
The answer is I don't know. Yeah.
I did ask, because there's this rumor that Ingo trained a second set of people as well in the Jim Mars book. And I did ask him directly to his face when I visited him. And he didn't really answer it, but he smiled at me. You know, he had his cigar as he usually did in his hand, and he just smiled at me.
Yeah.
Said, you know, and he said it in the way, I think he was telling me in the way he was answering the question. He said, "There's, you know, I signed a security oath, so there's some things I can't answer." But as he said it, he had a biggest grin on his face that he had for the entire day.
Yeah, the answer is the standard answer is I can neither confirm nor deny. Yep.
Great stuff. Anyone else got some last questions here? Because we're at 12:30, which is 2.5 hours. I don't want to keep Lyn from anything else he's got to do.
Yeah, my wife's just stuck her head in the door and said, eating. Supper time.
Any last questions, or are you guys all done now on this?
Thank you for inviting me. I enjoy this, and I am very happy to see so many people interested in this and so many people doing work in it. Like I say, every drop of this in the ocean raises the level of all humanity. And I want to thank you for the work you're doing and the studying you're doing and what you're learning. So it's been an honor for me to meet every one of you, and I hope I get to work with you sometime.
Yeah, it's been great having you on, Lyn. We'll definitely have you back for another one of these chats for as long as I continue doing them.
Okay.
I think they're very informative, and people seem to like them. We usually get, 40, 50 people attend a time. And I put the videos up on YouTube as well. So I'll give you the links for that in a day or so when they go up. But thank you very much for sharing everything with us and for all the work you've done in remote viewing. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
well, we'll leave it there then, guys. Thanks for coming along, and I hope you enjoyed Lynn. And you can give him a round of applause with your reactions button there, or however you want to do it. But thanks again, Lynn. We'll definitely get you back for other discussions on this in the future going ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care, and I'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Daz.
Thanks, Lynn.
Good seeing you, Carl. Richard, good seeing you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.